Just a quick heads up. This one's part 1 of 2. The conversation went deep, and honestly, it's bigger than what even 2 episodes can hold. We also touch on some heavier stuff, including suicide. If you're struggling, please reach out for help. You can talk to a therapist or ask someone close to help you find one. If you're having thoughts of suicide, you can call or text 988 for help right now. And if you're in crisis, please call 911. We hope this conversation hits at a deep level, and if you need help, we hope it's a spark that helps you take that next step. All right, well, welcome back to the MAJO Podcast, Real, Raw, Unfiltered. I'm Derek. If you missed last week's episode, the time I almost got divorced over the dishwasher, go check it out. That one opened up a lot of conversation about communication and connection and how those small fights early on usually have a deeper meaning underneath them. We had a homeboy, Chef Ked, on. It was a great time together. And you'd probably know that if you were following us. So if you didn't know that, you're not following us. So hit that follow button, subscribe on Spotify and Apple and whatever platform you use so that you don't miss an episode.
And I'm
Today
Jason,
we're
guys.
tackling-
Last week he didn't introduce me last week, so y'all just gotta skip over me. I'm part of the show too. I don't know if you guys know this or not. My name is Jason. I'm here to hang out too sometimes. So he forgot me one week, so we're just gonna say
my bad. My bad. Everybody knows you already. I'm the one with 200 followers, bro.
I'm a big
I
deal
got
in the
200
bariatric
followers.
space,
You
but I'm
have
nothing here.
Nah, I got 200 followers. You got like 6,000. So people know who you are, bro. They don't know who I am. So, but anyway, yes, this is Jason. I'll make sure I introduce him or let him introduce himself moving forward. Good call out. So today we're tackling a question a lot of men are actually typing into Google at 2 a.m. in the morning. Does therapy make you soft? We've got my guy Tony in the studio today, and we're breaking down where that idea comes from, why it still sticks around, and what real strength actually looks like when you start doing the work. Tony, if you want to introduce yourself, let the people know about you.
Gentlemen, happy to be on. Tony, but my professional name is Anthony Gonzalez, but I go by Tony in most circles. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and qualified supervisor with my practice, which is Alaria Emotional Health, which is based in South Florida, Palm Beach County. I don't know, originally from Kansas City, bounced around a little bit, married, no kids, got a great dog, so I don't know. Just love what I do, man. What's that? Oh, clothing line? Yeah, we may be jumping into that a little bit later, but
yeah. Tony has a hand in a lot of things. He's being humble right now, but
it's creativity is my coping, it's for real. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll get into a little more of that, but as we go on, not the clothing line, but just who I am and kind of my perspectives on all these topics, because it's a great topic you bring it to the table for.
Man, it's a big one. It's a big one. I actually, because I do a little bit of research before the shows just to see what's out there, and what I found is like that 2 a.m. is literally a time that people are searching this exact question. Like, which was surprising to me. I didn't realize that. I was just like, hey, I'm just doing some research. And it was like, literally at 2 a.m. dudes are Googling, does therapy make you soft?
Well, but if you think about it, like that's really kind of the time you contemplate life's decisions. And if you're having a rough time, like you're tossing and turning, trying to get to sleep, and you're like, man, what else can I do? Grasping at straws. Like that's what, you kind of, that's a lot of end of the rope moments happen, between 2 and 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. So.
Yeah, you're lying. You can't sleep. Your mind running, ruminating, kind of thinking like I need some help.
Yep.
Or hesitating, and to feel that tension.
And that tension, man, so that's the myth, right? Like, so where do you think that myth therapy makes you soft started? And maybe even more personal, that when you think therapy makes you soft, who's the first person that comes to your mind when you hear that?
So the first person that's a great question. He's probably gonna be mad that I say this, but my pops, my dad, just I know, and I'm not gonna put him on blast or anything, but like just enough of his story that he's never pursued the help, and he's a good man. He's a great dad. He's a great provider. Always present in our lives, thankfully. And I just know that that generationally, he's in his late 70s, that it's somehow it was always off limits. It's like that generational perspective of bootstraps, get it together, stiff upper lip. You know, you wear your shoulders broad, and somehow that seeking of assistance, seeking of support of some kind meant something negative. You know, whether it shows up as weak, soft, you know, whatever adjective we want to put to it, we somewhere along the line it became a sense of truth about men.
Well, and the rough part is it's kind of twofold, because part of it is part of it's generational, but also part of it's cultural. You know, if
100%,
culturally, if you are from a culture who has had a rough time with a negative outlook from community and things like that, you don't want people to know that you have a weakness. You don't want people to know that you don't want people to know your business. Why are you telling those people our business? Those people don't need to know our business. You know, why would you go to somebody outside of the family? Why, you know, there's always things that come up, and it's almost like you can tag the line by the culture as to what's going to be said, because it's funny when you ask people of different cultures what they heard about therapy growing up, or if they mentioned it there, because a lot of people are closeted in therapy. They don't even tell their families that they're going.
I got men that I work with right now that they come faithfully every week, and we do great work, and they don't tell nobody in their family.
Yeah.
So who comes to your mind, Jason? First person.
Honestly, I've been fortunate enough to never have anybody say that to me. Like, I have people, like, I know, like everybody, like when, so like, you and I were joking about it before we came on here. Like, I did therapy when I was 9, but it was because my dad left. Like, we had a traumatic time. Like, my dad left, my house burned down. Like, it was a country song basically at that point in my life. There was just a few things that happened really traumatic in a short period of time. And my body, like, it was bad enough. My body was reacting. Like, I would have convulsions to a point that I couldn't control them. Like, body was shaking, like, to the point that I had to, there was nothing I could do to fix it. So we would, so my mom put me in therapy with a psychologist that I worked with for a couple of years. And then past that, just moving through life, getting with Sarah, having you as a friend, and you introducing me to more people that are in the space, having my, the bariatric podcast that I have, speaking with therapists there. Like, I just have never been in a place where anybody thought that, therapy wasn't going to work, or wasn't an option, wasn't a viable option. Like, I don't know. Honestly, I've been fortunate enough to be in circles where it wasn't stigmatized.
I appreciate you saying, because that's one clever. When I say I think of my pops first, like, he never told me that.
Sure.
Therapy just was never part of the conversation.
Right.
So it's, you know what I mean? Like, within our circles and our familial circles, it wasn't even a consideration. I joke about this sometimes when I'm either in conversation or doing lectures. It's like, when I decided to become a therapist, I had never been to therapy. I didn't know a therapist. I didn't know anybody who had been to therapy, unless it was like the drug treatment center or something like that. And so it's like, it was like this unspoken truth in a way, because it just, like, that's not what anybody did, whether it was accessibility, whether it was, to your point, Jason, I think that's right, or the culture and the mistrust of medical systems, or what people will do, because this conflict, or the conceptualization that, well, they'll take your kids, they'll put you in the hospital, you'll lose your job.
Like, and it starts to affect, and it's,
and it starts to affect the potential survival. And so it's like, then we, tend to hold that all in, thinking that's the only way we've observed people cope. It's just to put your head down and do it and get through it. Not realizing all the things that people were struggling with, or not making the conscious connection, particularly when I was young, between alcoholism, drug use, divorces in my family system, things like people being overweight with their, emotional eating, all these things. It wasn't until much later in my life that I started to make these connections. Like, well, damn, like, I wonder how my loved ones and those concentric circles of friends and neighbors and all that, how things might have been different if that would have been a more part of the conversation.
So how do you think things would have been different? Like, if that had been a part of the conversation for you, what could have been different for you?
Well, for me, I don't necessarily know if it had been different for me, but I can definitely think about people in my family that maybe they'd still be here.
Yeah.
For one, family members that lost their battles, whether immediately or because of their, maybe consequential health struggles, that lost their battles to addiction, or, family members that ended up doing time behind bars because of struggles, or how they, ended up just completely disconnected from the family because of struggles. And so I think about, I don't generally like to predict what could have been, but it's a great question because I know it would have been different. And I think the consequence would have been, healthier people that maybe still had connections. Maybe they're still here. Maybe they have better relationships with their children.
For sure.
Maybe they'd have been, ultimately more happy in what their paths they ended up choosing in life. So yeah, no, that's a great question though. Like I'm gonna be up at 2 a.m. thinking about that tonight, probably.
Just
I think it's good.
Like
people, yeah, like good. Yeah, I think people hearing it though, right? Like we can look back on our past and be like, man, if this, it's possible if this would have happened, things could have been different. Somebody could hear that and think about how they may be able to make things different for them moving forward, right? Like if somebody's struggling right now, or they have something going on, and they hear this, and they're like, they hear your testimony and that, and hear, this thing may have been different, and that may spark something in them, so that things can be different for them moving forward.
Well, it's not even necessarily for them. Like it could be for others too. Like if they know, because everybody knows somebody that's struggling with something. So I mean, if if you're hearing this and know somebody and can reach out to them and let them know, that there's other avenues. There's ways to approach these things to maybe in a healthier way that can get you, on the other side of whatever you're struggling with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know for me, not even as a therapist, but on the other end of someone pursuing support, it came for me at the right time in life, which was much later. It wasn't until my late 40s where I really started pursuing it. And it I'm not in active therapy now, but I know the person I see, I could call him anytime and be like, yo, I need somebody to carry the load with me right now. And he'd be like, just tell me when you can schedule, because of that shift in saying that it to the question of the night is like, does it make you soft? I mean, I've been thinking a lot about this over the past week, and I think about twofold. The obvious answer is no, it doesn't. You know what I mean? It doesn't make us soft. It's a strength. But then it's like, but then what comes up for me is like, what's actually, I think the premise of the question is rooted in the same stigma. Because what if it means you're weak?
Yeah.
Are we not supposed to sometimes be weak?
Right. Are we gonna get there? We gonna get
there. Right?
He's a puppy break.
Jumping ahead. Hey, but you on the right track, because we're gonna get there. I think that's ultimately at the root of it. Right? Like, what if you are?
Yeah. Well, because the thing is, like, who the hell determines what soft is? What is your level of soft? Like my level of soft and your level of soft is different. Trust me, the minute I had a daughter, my ass became soft. I don't care what you say. Anybody that has a daughter will tell you right now. Like when they hand you a pretend phone, your ass picks up. When they want to have a tea party, you put the damn crown on. Like that's what you do.
You put it on.
Yeah, what are you gonna tell her? No, I don't want tea right now. No, you have to get down and play. Like that's just the thing. Like the whole perception.
Putting up your pinky.
Pinky's up, baby. Like that's it. High noon tea. But that's the thing. Like who determines what level of soft is? Like if I'm I'm 49 years old. If I'm soft, I'm a soft ass old man. Get it what it is. I got granddaughters that are 7 and 9 years old. What about what I look like trying to be a thug in the streets at 49 years old with grandbabies and a gray beard? Like, come on, guys, let's do this. Like, no.
I think just even philosophical, and I don't want to jump too far ahead if this is part of the later conversation. It's just like one can't be true without the other.
Right.
We all strive as men trying to be fully in our maturity and masculinity. We want to be strong. We want to be strong for the people around us. We want to be, stand with our, 10 toes down and chest out and in that sense of strong. But like that can't be true. And it cannot be without exhaustion if we don't have a sense of soft,
right,
or a place of ability at times in our lives to be weak and say, you know what, I need some help right now. I can't carry the couch in from this room to that room on my own. I need somebody to carry the other end.
Yeah. And it's not a black and white situation. It's a yes and.
Right.
Like, it's not one or the
That's
other.
right. Yeah.
I mean, you can stand 10 toes down and do those things, but you have to have the emotional maturity and the empathy to be able to see both sides of it. Like, you can stand all you want to, but at the same time, like, you have to have that level of softness, empathy, and caring for other people just to survive. Like, you can't just be hardened by everything and just let it continue to calcify, because at that point, like, what level of life are you leading if that's how you're choosing to go through, just letting everything just continue to harden you that way?
Yeah, a lot of the people I work with, you know, it's strangely enough that maybe struggle with those thought processes and frameworks those rules they live life by, end up in therapy, whether it is when I was working in correctional facilities back in the day. It's like that, the sense that hardness, to me, in a way, is more weak at times because it's avoiding.
Yep.
It's shutting yourself off.
Absolutely.
From what's real. It's shutting yourself off from real sadness or real fear or real insecurity that might be coming from a super legitimate place based upon your life experience.
100%.
And that sense of like that avoidance, I don't judge it. And I didn't mean that as sound judgmental to anybody struggling with that, but it's like, but it is that hard, that binary hardness that you were just talking about, that black and white, that staying in strength all the time is avoiding. And it's avoiding what it feels like to have softness, or what it feels like to be vulnerable, what it feels like to quote unquote be weak. And I think that the bigger question is like, why are we afraid of that?
Well, because
what is the fear that underlies that?
And it's growth.
No, go ahead.
I mean, it's the uncomfortability of growth. Because if it's uncomfortable to be in those spaces, that's the only way you're going to grow, is in the uncomfortable times. It's like uncomfortable spaces when it doesn't feel right, when it doesn't feel normal. Like, you are stunting your growth by not allowing yourself to see all sides but the heart. Like, if you just want to stick with the I struggle because that's what men do. Like, that's what, and granted, that's what we've been conditioned to do. But that's also we've been conditioned to do by people who died in their fucking 40s, 50s, and 60s, because stress kills people. We know this. Stress will kill you. And if you sit there, bottle it up, and don't say shit to anybody, and don't learn to grow or to soften a little bit, I mean, you're signing yourself up for it, because it's coming. Like, it doesn't make a shit how you feel, how strong you are. You can stand 10 toes down, but them 10 toes are going to be pointing up real soon.
Yo, facts.
Well, I think that's why this conversation is good, and kind of why I was like, hold on a second, get ahead, because I think even in what we're saying, like, we can say it, but if people don't have the conversation we're having and answer some of the questions we're going to answer tonight, they don't understand why they view it the way that they view it. Right. So, like, another question that came up, you know, as men, when you grew up, how did you see men handle emotions? Were they allowed to, or did they have to shut it down and stay silent and be strong?
Again, I'll use my relationship to my father as an example. I've seen him cry, at least as a child. It's different as later in life, but twice. You know, when him and my mom were going through some pretty significant struggles when I was in late elementary school, I seen him cry. And then I with my own eyes saw him cry at a gentleman who was really important in his life later on in life, because my grandfather died when he was like 12. So another person that had been around and been with my grandmother for a number of years, when he passed, I saw him cry at that service. Those are only 2 times I saw him cry before I was 40 years old.
Man, I remember once, bro.
And I think about that as like, he was a military man, like conditioned, you know, child of immigrants to this country. And like, it's hard to say what conditioned them, because like, we can guess, we can look at cultural norms, we can look at generational norms, but I still think it's bigger than that. And I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think about that. It's hard to say, because I think it's so individualized. And then you just pick up, we learn so much passive observation and unconditional ingestion of information of what a norm is. You know what I mean? So it's just like, if we're going to cry in private.
And I appreciate your openness, because I do want to say I think this can be a hurdle for people, especially getting in therapy, is a lot of the way we view the world is formed by our parents. And we love our parents, we're connected to our parents. And so when we try to look at their humanness, sometimes it can feel like judgment. And that's not what it is. And that's not what we try to, we obviously, I mean, if you've watched the show at all, you know that Jason and I both have openly talked about our dads and family histories and stuff like that. And so, just laying that out and kind of maybe reframing a little bit of like, looking at your parents' humanness isn't judgment. It's being honest. And in that honesty, you can open up maybe some of the organizing principles that you have that are causing some of these struggles that you're having, right? And so in being honest about how our parents fell short in some ways isn't judgment. It's just looking at their humanness. Like, we all fall short in some ways. We all have weaknesses. We all have the blind spots. And they're formed in our childhood and in our culture and the way that we grew up and stuff like that. And to be honest about those only allows space for you to be honest about yourself. And so I appreciate you in the openness and kind of protecting Dad a little bit, and like, I don't want to, but that's part of this, man, because I remember my dad crying one time, and it was when, his only grandfather I knew on his side, but he wasn't his real dad, but so my grandfather, I guess we call him that, he died, and he did not have a good relationship with him. He did not like, from what I understood, he did not like him. But he took care of my grandmother, and he passed, and that was the only time I saw my dad cry. And in that, I think about that, and I'm like, it was super confusing, right? Because and let me preface it with this, like, my dad wasn't around but for maybe 6 months. When I was like 12, 13, he went back to prison, so I didn't have much opportunity to see him cry, right? But it was super confusing, because I'm like, you never liked this man, and yet you're crying about it. I'm crying about losing him, which was and I was like 20 or something like that, I think. And so it was just confusing to me, but it was like, that's the one time that I've ever seen him cry. Like, no other time, none of the other conversations, anything that we've had when we did talk, there was never any emotion like that. It was anger and blame. There's a lot of what came through.
Yeah.
It was anger and blame.
I would honestly say, for me, it was more stoicism than that. Like, just quiet. Just in our world, we would call that stonewalling, in the sense of just shutting down. Of like, it wasn't crying or necessarily anger even. It was just, I don't know what he's feeling. And I know I can be that way too. You know what I mean? And that was one of the things I've had to come to a realization with later in my life, that like, I had intentionally hidden my emotions from people for a very long time. For a lot of the reasons I think we're probably going to discuss it over the next, 45 minutes or so, because of what other people might think.
Yeah.
Or no, but go ahead. Yeah.
No, and then I also think about, so I had that, my few little memories of him, and then, the first question about what, therapy making you soft, what comes to mind? Hip hop came to my mind. Like, as hip hop raised me, right? Like, and so there was no softness, there was no therapy in hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Like,
for the most part, I mean,
No,
Pac
go ahead.
Pac did Brenda's Got a Baby. Ghostface did.
Well, that's, and I think, you say that, and I think that's why Pac was like my favorite of all time, because there was some realness in the way that he talked about things, and just, but yeah, so there was never like, go to therapy. It was it was still like, be hard, be a thug, be this, you gotta be like,
But like, to your point though, like what you're talking about with Pac, that's that empathy part that I'm talking about. Like, he was able to show you both sides, because as much as the thug persona he put on, the thug life and all that shit, like, he was not that growing up. He was a theater kid. Like, he was a theater kid. He did ballet. He did all kinds of shit that made him not the persona he put on. But that was a protection thing. Like, he had to put that on after the system started going after him, and he had to change his perception on things, and he became what he was driven to become. But he still had the empathy that he grew up with, that was instilled to him by his mother. which is exactly why, you know, that's why a lot of us gravitated towards him in that way, because we did have the hard side of the, this is what it is, this is reality, and this is, you know, punch you in the face type stuff. But then, you know, when you have somebody that shows the other side, you're like, oh, well, this is cool too. Like I get to see, you know, kind of walk the tightrope, and I get to look over both edges and see what it is. Like, but to your point, like you guys were both talking about your fathers, like I saw my dad cry a handful of times, and it was the same situation. It was always rooted around people that were important to him that he lost, or important situations where he and I had gotten into it and he realized like the gravity of what was happening. And he would, you know, when we talked about it and talked it out, he, you know, he showed real emotion. I was never not given the opportunity to show emotion or to be emotional or to kind of sit in or try to figure out my emotions, but my kind of my role model for emotions was him, which was happy or mad. Like I was you got 0 to 100. He was either giggling, laughing, or he was tearing cabinet doors off the walls and throwing, breaking dishes and like that. There's two options. So when I grew up, that's what I gravitated towards. That was me. I was either happy, giggling, laughing, or you were scared running from me. It's two things. That was it. And now that I'm old, you know, it's as I'm getting older, I realize that, you know, I wasted a lot of time in that space. And, you know, I thought back to it the other day. It was funny. I was thinking about this, like my son, he's 23 now, and he's openly going to therapy, struggling with mental health issues. And he really has a hard time kind of grasping his emotions and how to deal with it. And when he gets overwhelmed, he gets flustered, and he'll kind of crash out sometimes. He doesn't do it. It's very rare that it happens, but like he did it the other day. He was getting overwhelmed with doing some stuff like organizing and cleaning out the garage of the mess that he made, of course. And Sarah was trying to get him to kind of focus and figure it out. Well, how she was explaining it to him just kept kind of piling on. And so he snapped. He got loud. He touched, he says things, and then walked into his room and slammed the door. Well, I work from home, so I'm at my desk. And when he walked past me, I didn't say anything. I let him, he got loud. He did his thing. He went to his room. But when he slammed the door, I instantly activated back to that. I jumped up, down back there, kicked the door open, and was like, hey, I was like, you remember how I used to be and how I'm not anymore? I was like, I can go back there if you want to revisit that. I was like, what you're not going to do is act that way in my house. Like, I don't give a shit how overwhelmed you are, how frustrated you are. I understand it's hard. I know these things are happening. But I was like, to me, it was like a full circle moment, because I was able to catch it in the moment and not go back to that place, but still get my point across to be like, hey, I've changed, so you don't have to go through what I went through. Don't let my old actions dictate how you process your emotions, because I don't want that for him, because I know now that I'm old enough to realize how much of time I wasted being that way. I don't want him to be the same. So I'm trying to break that curse, that generational curse with that, so that it stops with me.
Yeah.
Man, them kids.
Can I ask how he responded?
Yeah, go ahead.
He sat there, I could tell he was overly emotional as he sat there, because he was already, he knew that he was wrong. So he was welling up. He was kind of fighting back the tears, but he stopped in his tracks. You could tell it instantly just kind of dropped. And he was like, cause he knew what I was saying. Cause he knows that I don't want to go back there, just like he doesn't want to see me go back there. And he just looked at me and he nodded. He didn't say anything. And I didn't expect him to say, because I knew he was having a hard time holding himself together as it was. So I didn't expect a long conversation, and I wasn't looking for one. So I just looked at him and said, do you understand? And he nodded. And I just shut the door and let him kind of fall apart. And like, he had the rest of the day kind of to chill in his room and kind of think about what he was doing. And then when he came out later, he went to his mom and directly apologized. Like he knew that actually she came to him, because she was like, has he come out yet? I said, I ain't been out since. And I wasn't bothering him. I was letting him kind of do his thing and kind of calm down. And so she went in there, because my wife is scared of shit. So she just walked in. She tapped on the door, a little fingernails, and boop, and opened the door and went in. And she just, so she went in and talked to him, and he apologized, and they kind of were able to get on the other side of it. But it just, in that moment, I I flashed because all the way down the hallway, I'm amped, like I'm ready. And I knew that it wasn't going to be a confrontation because that's just not how he and I are. But in that moment, I was like, I'll kick that door smooth off the hinges. He won't have a door to slam. And I like all these scenarios in my head of how the old me would have handled it. And, you know, I would have busted through that bitch like the Kool-Aid man and been like, oh, yeah, like now we're doing it. Like now, slam the door now, you know. And I didn't want to get to that spot. So when I was able to talk it out with him and, you know, kind of get to I came back to my desk with a greater sense of gratification because I handled it better than I know I would have before.
Yeah. So something's coming to me as you, and I
Go ahead, brother.
I want to extrapolate that out to like a bigger point, if I can.
Go ahead.
Like, as you were saying that, like what occurred to me is like, I think a lot of times in our lives, we're not allowed to be angry.
Right.
And I think there's times where, and obviously slamming the door, that ain't cool. But I'm saying, but something else was going on with him, and he was frustrated with himself. He was confused. He was maybe getting down on himself that he couldn't figure it out. He felt like he was disappointing. He was probably had all these criticisms going on in his mind. And I think to the bigger question of the day, I wonder, I do think there's something to a lot of times men don't go to therapy because there's this unconscious view that will my emotions be judged? Will this be a safe place for me to get angry? I remember very vividly when I'm a trained psychedelic therapist, and when you're going through training, you actually have the ability to participate as a patient, as a participant.
Oh, nice.
And I was coming out of my psilocybin journey, and it was incredibly profound. Changed the trajectory of my sense of self in many, many, many ways. But I remember sitting in that room and we're processing, and I said, I cannot let myself express what I really need to express because it won't be safe for you guys. And not that I was going to hurt anybody, but there was so much in me that I had to be conscious. I was also conscious enough that I'm not trying to, they're coming out of their journeys too. You know what I mean? They're very vulnerable. Yeah. And I think a lot of times those of us that come from the places that we do that probably need therapy the most, we also have this conflict of, will it actually be accepted there?
Yeah.
Will it be received if I need to get angry? Will it be received if I actually need to break down? If I let you see my rage, if I let you see my hurt, if I let you see my pain, not only will you know how to hold it, but will it scare you away?
Yeah. And that's why I made sure when I told him, like when I went in there and was talking to him, I said, listen, it's okay for you to be frustrated. It's okay to be mad. Like, I understand you're upset. You need to sit with those emotions, process them how you want to. But what I can't have is you talk to your mother that way. And I can't have you slam the door.
Yeah.
And those are the two parameters I gave him. I said, past that, I was like, do what you got to do to process, but what you can't do are those two things.
Yeah. Well, I think you bring up a good point. Is that going to be safe? And I think that these echoes from our childhood a lot of the time make it seem like it's already preconceived that it's not going to be.
Yeah, that it's not safe. Yeah.
That it's not going to be safe. And without even making the connection that's from their childhood, right? Or from the way that we grew up. We just assume that this person is going to think we're crazy, or they assume that they're going to be like everybody else. We have these assumptions before even getting into therapy about it being unsafe, and we write it off as, well, I don't need help. I'm not going to be soft. I'm not going to, you know what I mean? I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. That's the mask
we put on it.
And that's the mask, right? Yeah. And it comes from those examples we saw growing up, you know. And I even think back, like for me, like I was put in therapy when I was young, but a lot of times it seemed like it was change yourself. And if I didn't change it, then I was doing something wrong.
You were doing something wrong.
Right. And so it just reaffirmed that I was a shameful person, or I was a bad person, or there was something innately wrong with me, and that I don't need to open up to others because it'll just reaffirm that there's something wrong with me. You know what I mean?
Well, and it goes to like how a lot of it is like, how bad are you off that you can't just fix it yourself? Like, are you that bad? Like, are you that crazy? Yeah, it's like, are you that crazy that you can't just fix it yourself? Like, how bad is this really? And then you go back to it as a man and go like, oh, well, shit, if I can't handle it on my own, like, what kind of man am I? And it, like you said, I mean, when you start tumbled around all those emotions and they just keep clanking around in there in your head, like, you get this analysis paralysis type shit where you don't even know where to start. So why even mess with it at all? Because you look at it as one giant mountain instead of picking one thing out at a time that you want to tackle. It's just like, oh, it's insurmountable at this point because there's so much I have to do. So I'm just not going to do any of it.
Right. But I'll go even further, because I think that piece of shame in my point, and I think there's a lot of perspectives on this, but and the one I tend to align with most, I don't think as many men look at therapy, I'm soft or I'm weak. I actually think that's what they say. But really what they're saying is, I don't want anybody to really see me.
No, 100%.
I'm so afraid. I don't want to tell you, because then I have to look at it myself. I have to reconcile this anger or this shame or the thing I did or the thing I'm struggling with, the fear that I hold or the insecurity I hold, whatever it is. I don't want to look at it myself.
Yeah.
So it's easier for me to say, yeah, that bullshit, that's just weak. That's for whatever, you know, when it's really, I'm so afraid to look at it. I'm so afraid to feel it that I don't want to sit down with you. I don't want to sit across from somebody and ask a real question.
Yeah, that's a lot of boxes you've had.
Even if it's somebody that could understand.
Yeah, you've had a lot of boxes 100%. Taped up in the attic for a long time. You're not ready to dust them off and open those yet. You know what's in them. You just don't want to go back and talk about it, because I mean, that's tough conversations are something that we build up in our minds so much, when in reality the conversation isn't near as tough as we thought it was going to be, as what we build it up as. We build it up as this 10-foot monster that we just can't beat, when really, in all honesty, once you open the box up and start unpacking it one little thing at a time, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm experiencing that heavy. I'm experiencing that heavy right now, because Jason, you know a little bit. Tony, we ain't talked in a minute, but like, so, and people who have listened will know a little bit about, because I've referenced this a little bit, but so like my oldest and I haven't had a great relationship in a while. And there was a period of time we didn't talk. Well, also at the same time, my parents and I, neither one of them have a great relationship. And I made this, I kind of had this, and I've talked to my daughter at this point, so I feel like I'm comfortable opening up a little bit more about it. I had an epiphany in therapy one day so I was 17 when my wife had my daughter. And my mother at the time, before she found out we were pregnant, she had actually started talking about wanting to have a kid or adopt a kid or whatever. She wanted another kid. And then we got pregnant. And so, and I never felt fully like accepted by my mom, stuff like that. And this is all stuff I've uncovered. I didn't recognize it at the time when I was 17, right? I didn't know that back then. But I've started to realize, like, I never really felt fully accepted for who I am by my mother or my dad, but sticking with my mother for right now. And so when my daughter was born, there was a way that my mother kind of stepped in and overstepped, and unknowingly put me and my daughter in a dynamic of more siblings instead of father-daughter. And what happens when one sibling sees mom favor the other sibling? Jealousy. And so, hold on.
Yeah. Take your time, man. Yeah.
And so for years, I have been angry with my daughter because my mother favored her and accepted her. And I took that anger out on my daughter, right? And so, man, I'm all discombobulated now. I didn't plan on
take your time, going on. Safe space, real and raw, dog. Come on.
The heavy conversations. And so once I made this, I kind of understood this in therapy. Like I remember the moment vividly. I was like, man, I need to call Elisha, because I recognize this of like, I've longed for my mother's affection and attention and acceptance. And you talk about emotions being scary for others, like being 6 foot at 12, if I got emotional, it was scary. Right. And so everybody was scared of me. And so my emotions, I always stayed inside. And so, And my mother like fed into that. Instead of accepting me, she would get scared, right? And so just reinforce that emotions weren't safe. And so I had this epiphany of like wanting her acceptance and how I took that on my daughter. And I just was like, man, I need to call her. But then that piece you're talking about of how hard the conversations are, like we build them up in our mind until like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. It was about 3 weeks ago now, 3 weeks ago. Yeah. I was like, man, I just got to have the conversation. And then Jason was like, bro, you got to have the conversation. And a friend of ours, AJ, he was like, bro, I'm texting you and making sure you have the conversation. But we ended up having the conversation, my daughter and I. And I broke down and I just apologized to her. And I said I was sorry. And I'm like, I recognize the way that I've taken this stuff out on you that ain't your fault. And it shouldn't have been your fault. Shouldn't have been taken out on you. And it was like this idea of the conversation and how hard it was going to be didn't end up being that hard. And it's the same thing as well with my dad as well. Like we hadn't talked in about 4 years. And then a post about Trump the other day, a post about Trump caused him to respond to me on Facebook. I can't text or call.
He's a peacemaker, man.
Man, listen, Trump bring the family together, right?
He's stopping all wars.
He's stopping all wars and family feuds, you know what I mean? And I was getting to a place where I was like grieving that relationship because I mean, he got in a serious car wreck and I didn't know he was how close to death he was until what I'm about to say happened, and he finally told me, and he didn't reach out though. Right, so he was in a serious car wreck, and I knew he was in ICU, but I didn't know he was close to death. But when he got out of that, he still didn't call me and try to reach out or anything like that. And I wasn't going to break that silence because I was doing my own work. I'm just like grieving this thing, and I'm at a place where I'm not pursuing my parents anymore. I don't think no matter how old a child gets, they should never be in a role of pursuing the relationship with their parent. And I'd found myself in that with both of mine, which caused more strife with my kids, right? And so I was taking myself out that role, so I wasn't going to contact. Well, I make this post about Trump, and he responds, and it started a conversation with him now. Now it's only through Facebook Messenger. He still ain't called me, but at least it's something. But I also had built that conversation up of like, man, how am I going to stand up for myself? How am I going to say what I need to say? And then this post about Trump happens, and Jason saw it. And I was like, oh, I have a choice in this moment that I can not say something and just keep going, or I can say something. And I made the choice to say something. And so again, this conversation I built up that was going to be really difficult, I just leaned into it, and it hasn't been that difficult at all. Now he's blamed me at a level. He hasn't taken accountability for the lack of silence, and he said something about him being close to death and how me not reaching out, even though I knew he was close to death, is a hard pill to swallow, et cetera, but he wants a relationship and whatnot. And I basically told him, I said, if you want a relationship with me, I never said we couldn't have one. I've never told you can't call me, never told you can't text me, never told you that you can't reach out to me. I never said we can't have a relationship, but I'm not going to be the one that fosters it. So it's on you. And I haven't heard back from him. But those are two conversations that have been on my shoulders that I had built up as these big, heavy things that were really scary and what if. And I know what it was with my daughter, like, because I uncovered this in therapy too.
I know where you're going.
If I have this conversation with my daughter, then I have to face the fact that my parents may never accept me. But me staying in this place with my daughter kind of protected me from this realization that my parents are capable people of reaching out and repairing our relationship, and they just ain't doing it.
They're not.
And they're not. Right. And so me not doing that kind of kept me in this place of protecting from facing that. And as soon as I had the conversation with my daughter, like it did bring me closer to that, like and making me see that and having to deal with the feelings about that. Right. But and I think it is that thing of like we build this thing up as protection, which comes along with like the question about, with men, like how do we convince ourselves that therapy makes us off or therapy doesn't work as a protection. But I built this conversation up as a protection to not have them when they weren't really that big at all. Now they're heavy conversations. They're emotional conversations. They're heavy, but they're not impossible, even though we built that in our head. And so how can men understand that a lot of times what we tell ourselves about therapy and doing the work is more defensive to our own, kind of what you're talking about, of uncovering and showing the anger, showing the rage, showing the weakness. Like we're just defending from us seeing ourselves.
Mm-hmm. That's 100. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And understanding our background helps us understanding our childhood can help us see that. Go ahead. Yes. My bad. I cut you off.
No, I was just going to validate that. It's like that sense of like when I think about therapy as a mirror. Like I ain't fixing nobody's problems. I'm helping them explore themselves. You know, it's better, to your point, better understand themselves, their own motivations, their own fears, their own defenses, their own shames or their own hopes and desires, whatever they are, the range of the things. It's like we're exploring you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that for all of us, men or women, doesn't matter, and everything in between. You know what I mean? Like it is scary. I think because a layer to that is because it's hard to get to really in tune with ourselves because it will necessarily change how we engage with the world around us. To your point, you got to that insight, but that also caused you to relate to your parents differently.
Yeah. Chain reaction.
We cannot change one thing without something else changing. That's one of the, I hold a very deep dialectical philosophy, and one thing cannot change without causing changes in a system.
Yeah.
And so that I think it becomes easier for us in our mind to just stand still and hold the pain because I know how to control this.
Yep.
What I don't know how to control is if I start to change, what are the ripple effects that I don't know, I can't anticipate and I can't see because I don't know if I'll be able to cope with that.
Yeah. It's the devil you know better than the devil you don't.
Because if I could take an example, it's like you built that conversation up, but what if your daughter said, I don't want to talk to you no more? Like maybe you wasn't built ready for that.
Oh, that was part of my work to get ready.
It was a real fear. Yeah, a real fear.
Yeah, I'm grateful that's not how it went. But I'm just saying. But to me, if I'm sitting across the couch from you, I'm like, that makes 100% sense why you wouldn't want to venture into that conversation. Because that's a much scarier unknown than sitting in the unknown of the possibility. Like eventually we could work it out. Maybe just not now. But if I plant a flag and start the conversation and it gets shut down, man, that sense of hope or powerlessness is much harder to cope with. And that's the thing, particularly as we as men conditioned in this world, we cannot be powerless. We're not allowed to be powerless.
I just started to say, I was like, the powerlessness that's the word, the dirtiest word in the men's mental health language is powerlessness.
Because and I think it's not only us, but it's also the ramifications of that, how society sees us.
Oh yeah.
How our family sees, how our partners see us, how we survive. Like we are conditioned, and whether you look at it genetically or socially, what we're conditioned to provide and protect. And if we have a sense of powerlessness that we can't do those things, then I'm actually working with this gentleman who's entering into his 50s and struggling with the sense of, I feel useless now. My kids don't need me anymore. I've done well enough to retire. Now what?
Right.
And thankfully we're working through it. I mean, shifting purpose, but you know what I'm saying? But like that sense of, I'm just rambling, but my point is,
you're good.
Like this sense of that often, I guess my point is like connecting those two dots of the fear of powerlessness and the avoidance structure that happens is what often we'll put a easy explanation to, that's soft. I ain't gonna do that route.
Well, and that's one of the things I talk about, a lot is like when you get to a point where you're like, everybody talks about having kids and raising kids and being a parent as like the young, when they're older, it's going to be so much better. When they're this, it's that, or, the years in diapers and the infants, that's the hardest stage because you don't have sleep and you have to teach them how to potty train, all these things. Nobody prepares you for the fact of when the ride's over. Like you raise, like you put all this time and effort into creating, this life for your kids where they're self-sustaining. Like you want them to be strong, independent, and, you know, this self-sustaining entities. But when you get there and you're like, wait, what do you mean you don't need me anymore? Like, you don't have to take them to school anymore. They don't need you to, like, your kids come home, oh, no, I signed up for this, or I'm doing this and that. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. So I actually did what I was supposed to do. You're self-sustaining now, but what am I supposed to do? Like, what? Nobody prepares you for when the ride's over. So you're just like, oh, well, shit. Okay, well, all right then. Like, that's cool, I guess.
I guess. Right?
And then you can't even say, call me if you need me, because they don't need shit. So you're just like, oh, well, I guess I'll holler at you. Like, cool, go off into the world. But I mean, you have to think of, like, I am fortunate enough that when my daughter was 5 when she came into my life. And I was young, and I was 26, 25 at the time. So I was still young enough as she got older to realize, like, I know now, like, I'll give her shit about not talking to her for a while, but I'm like, I remember getting guilt trips and stuff from my dad about not calling him enough. But I'm like, bro, I work, my wife goes to school, I got 2 kids, like, I got a life, like, I'm trying to build my own damn life, and I'm sitting over here like, you're mad because you're home on the couch, like, waiting for me to call. Like, I'm sorry, but I got shit to do. Like, I can't just be on the phone with you all day. Like, I gotta work, I gotta try to, you know, be in my kids' lives and do all my stuff. Like, I get that, you know, things are slowing down for you, but I gotta be here for everybody else. Like, I just don't. So I am able to give them the grace and the space to do what they need to do that I didn't get from my parents. So there's another way that I'm kind of stepping into that. But to your point, though, like, it's hard as hell when the ride comes to an end and they don't need you anymore, because you're just like, yeah, the purpose, the finding your purpose on the backside, it's like, all right then, like, cool, I guess. Like, who am I again? Like, what did I like before all this shit started?
Hey, I know we talking about men, but I think I talked to my mom about that. Like, when my parents are so lovingly codependent that,
I love it.
They on the other side. Like, they won't call me, because it's like, well, we know you're busy. We know you run 3 businesses. We know you got all these responsibilities. You're taking care of so many people. And I'm just like, but damn, you can still call. Like, there's all right.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not them avoiding. It's like them trying to, like, overcorrecting into respect, you know, and appreciation. I'm just like, but so we kind of worked through it, and I'm like, okay, we got a time where we talk no matter what every week, you know.
That's good.
Yeah.
But it's I think that part is if we pick that apart a little further, that sense of being lost or confused. Again, men aren't allowed to be that. Like, men aren't allowed to feel that way. We're supposed to have the answers, particularly in our family. Like, everybody looks to, like, hopefully in our system, we feel like we're supposed to be looked to.
Sure.
Whether we can be or not is a separate story, you know.
Right.
But we put on ourselves often that I'm supposed to have all the answers, or we fall into this immature boy psychology that I'll just make myself incapable and I'll let people take care of me. You know?
That's
like, I recommend any man that's going through stages of life. I recommend this to almost every man I work with. It's a book called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. It's a study of the masculine archetypes from the perspective of Carl Jung's writings and work. And they go through, like, the boy psychology to man psychology, and then in each archetype they go into what's called the shadows. And you read that book, you'll see yourself. You'll recognize which of these shadows you get stuck in, or where the maturity stopped. Because, you know, I think I was going to say earlier, it's like we get caught up, I think, in these pseudo transition stages of our life. We were talking about hip hop. It's coming to my mind. It's like, well, yeah, partying, being out in the streets. Somehow we're putting up that as our disguise of masculinity. And like, well, nobody asked for help in that world unless it was to go out and ride on somebody. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so it's like, but that's so unreal to me personally at this stage of my life now, because we were all masking. We were all pretending like nothing ever got to us until something horrible happened. You know what I mean? And And so it's like the ability, because it kind of connects to the question of how life might be different for people. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know how. I wonder how things would have been different if people had more open conversations about feeling.
Yeah. Well, then the archetype thing that was cool that you talked about, it's like in my mind, the kind of one of the things I've always thought about, it's like you can either be the lighthouse in the storm or you can be a dinghy without a dock. Like, which one do you want to be?
Right. But my thing is, what if you want to be the lighthouse and just don't know how to be?
And and that's the deal.
And, and we're never shown, and
right.
you know what I mean?
And it might be helpful to get in therapy.
Might be helpful to get into therapy because but that's the thing. We're so conditioned to not admit when we don't know something, right? Because we'll be embarrassed. People will call us stupid, or like we'll be seen as less than, or we'll miss out on an opportunity or something like that. You know, and I think I tell a lot of the therapists that work for me, it's like, there is no such thing as a bad question. Like, don't, like, that whole idea of a stupid question, get that out of your mind right now, because I don't care if I've heard the question 100 times. You don't know the answer. Right. And in this situation, you don't know the answer. And I'd much rather you ask than try to figure it out and then get stumped and then lose confidence in some situation, or not be able to help that person as effectively. You know, because to me, supervision is like therapy in many ways.
It is. I got my first couple supervisees. I'm loving it. So, but it's like you're a lighthouse, but instead of using the lighthouse light, you're using a flashlight, and you think you know what you're doing, right? But you won't ask. You won't learn from anybody. You won't explore and see what else there might be. And so you're the lighthouse, but you're using a flashlight and wondering why all the boats are crashing into the shore. Why things are going down around you, or relationships aren't good, or whatever. But like, I'm being the lighthouse, so can't nobody tell me nothing but using the flashlight.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
and
there was something you said earlier I wanted to come back to go into this next question of, like, the unknown doesn't have to be scary. It's just unknown.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and we build this idea, and again, I've been there. We build this idea that the unknown is scary, and so we stay in the dysfunction because we understand it. We know what we're going to feel. We know what to expect. It may suck and it may be dysfunctional, but we know how to navigate it. And there's this idea that if I step into this unknown, that's scary because I won't know what to do. It's just unknown. And now it may be scary. There may be a scary part to it.
It might be. Yeah.
But it's still, but you don't know that. It's just unknown. And so trying to deconstruct that, because I think that comes to this question of, like, why do guys think therapy doesn't work? Where does that come from? Because I think a lot of times people get to a place and they say therapy didn't work. It seems like a lot of times it's because they won't step into the unknown.
Yeah.
They won't do the things they won't do the different things. They won't explore. They won't answer the inner questions. They won't go to those dark places.
Right.
Because it seems scary.
Yeah.
And so then they're just like, it doesn't work.
Yeah. It doesn't work if you don't work it. I mean, that's the thing. If you're going to go in and you keep that mask on and you don't ever get to to do the real work and open up to a level that you can really start making some progress, then nothing's going to work. I mean, it's the same thing with any program you want to talk about. I don't give a shit if it's a diet. I don't care if it's a work program, like whatever you want to do. If you go into it and just sign up for it, like you sign up for Planet Fitness, but you don't ever go and then wonder why you're not getting the results.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm a little bit cynical because I think just being transparent. Because I think there's a lot of therapists that aren't very good, to be honest.
Yes.
And I don't mean that arrogantly.
No. I think that's something to talk about. I think that's something to talk about.
Sometimes it don't work, and it is not their fault. You know?
It's not their fault, right? It is a therapist, but I think that it still comes back to like, that's also a good reason not to go back.
That's all. Yeah, exactly. Right.
And I think,
and I don't even mean like, you know, I think everybody who goes into our field has good intentions. I just mean sometimes it's, if you come in with a complex trauma and you meet with somebody who's not trained in that and they don't know how to explore that and they don't know how to gently titrate into preparing you to do that exposure work, then that's going to be bad. Like I point out this statistic I'm extensively trained in prolonged exposure therapy. And everybody points to it doesn't work because the VA has done studies and 50% of people drop out during their exposure work. And I'm just like, but how many of those people were actually prepared to do the exposure work? Or the therapist just jumped them into talking about the worst things they saw in Afghanistan? You know what I mean? It's like, if they're not prepared, then that's the therapist bad, not that the therapy doesn't work.
Yeah, you show up on a Tuesday and nobody tells you that you're about to relive the worst experiences of your life. And you go in thinking you're going to talk about, what was your childhood like? And all of a sudden it was like, hey, remember that time you lost half of your crew? And you're just like, oh, wait, I wasn't prepared for that.
No preparation work, no grounding work, no resourcing work, no coping skills work, no relationship work, no safety, trust development, none of that. Like part of the reason why I went into psychedelic work is because sometimes it would take so long to get people ready. To get the trust and the residents ready and it's like, and not that psychedelic doesn't fix everything by any means, but like it would just take sometimes 12 months, 18 months to get somebody to do this complex trauma work. And if it takes that long, I would just feel so gut wrenched by the suffering that they would experience during that process. And my point in all that is like, I'm cynical. Sometimes it's the therapy. Sometimes it's the relationship. I mean, I'm rooted in the philosophy that the relationship between two human beings is the strongest therapeutic tool that we have. And meeting with you and your style and what we got to know each other, yours is very different than meeting with another therapist or meeting with somebody that might take my approach. Like I tell people, I talk a lot. Like I tell stories. It's a conversation. If you want me to just sit up and just say, how did that make you feel? Then you probably ought to find somebody else, because that's not the way it's going to work. I mean, we're going to dig deep when you're ready to dig deep, but that's the way we're going, because that's the type of work I do. You know what I mean? I'm not going to hand you a worksheet and tell you to journal. That's just not me. But there are some people, that's the way they approach it. And then they'll be like, this shit's boring. I don't want to do this. What are you talking about?